Horror games are one of the very few types of games that can have only 5 minutes worth of gameplay and still be considered complete and worth one's time. You jump in, get the thrill of shock or fear, and get out. A perfect genre for honing your skills as a game developer and artist. I was a bit inspired by the remake of The Joy of Creation and thought some of its mechanics would be simple to program, so I decided to make a game that plays in a similar way. Firstly, I set up the level layout and color-coded the different rooms and hallways. This way, I could check where the monster is. After that, I set up a first-person controller and made it possible for the player to sit down, where, in the future, will be their desk with the camera monitors. Implementing the cameras was a bit tricky, but I managed to get it done after a few tries. There will be 3 cameras total for the player to use to keep track of the monster's movements. Now it's time to design the monster. Making the monster move throughout the map sounds a bit too complex for me to handle at the moment, so I decided that the monster will be stationary but will teleport to a new location when certain conditions are met. At first it will be in a sleep state, with a countdown that determines when it will wake up. When it does, it randomly chooses between the outdoors, generator room and storage room locations, and invades one of them. Then a second countdown starts, and when it ends, if the monster was in the generator room or the storage room, the monster will proceed into the hallway, and after the third timer, or if it was originally outdoors, it will enter the main room. If it doesn't happen to encounter the player, it will return to the sleep state. If at any point the monster and the player happen to be in the same room at the same time, a jump scare would occur. But how will the player be able to defend themselves from the monster? There are 2 main ways to do so. If the player sees the monster on a camera, they can hold down an alarm button which will make the monster retrace its steps. However, that won't be enough if the monster manages to actually move past the cameras. This is where the closets will come in. The player will be able to interact with closets that are sprinkled over the house and enter them to hide from the monster until it leaves. Now that I have the core mechanics done, it's time to move on to the art. I started with the environment, making a handful of furniture and similar props. The lighting isn't exactly how I wanted it to be, but it is good enough. Next on the line is the monster. I'm not sure exactly why, but I wanted a centipede-themed monster. This creature is kind of like a skinwalker, in that the centipede will use the corpse of the victim that it was eating as a puppet to lure other prey towards it. In this case, humans. I quickly made it an idle animation and animated the closets and doors so you can open and close them. Oh, I also made a tree for the outdoors section. I think it's neat. I set up the main menu and the sound system for the game. This way the volume for sound effects and the music are separated, which is nice. I especially like the sound effects I made for the button clicks. I did have some trouble with the UI, especially with the scaling and having the UI adjust to screen size properly, but it was nothing I couldn't fix. After I finished the functionality, I stitched together some menu art. Not my finest work for sure, but the game's development has been going on for quite more than anticipated, and I started to rush the development so I could actually finish it. After all of that, it's finally time to see the game as it is now. And not to spoil, but it's not in a good condition. You see, I have been developing this game for about 2 or so months, and then ended up taking a break for a few months because of some other things and projects that came up and consumed a lot of my free time. Recently, I got back to the game in an attempt to finish it, and unfortunately it is very buggy, and a lot of things that I thought worked started breaking after further testing. It became clear to me that even this relatively small game was too large for my skill level at the moment, and I also started to lose interest in the project too, mainly because of the large break that I took. So I decided to call this game quits here, since I didn't really even know how to start fixing it. With that said, I don't consider this a failure. I learned a lot from this experience, and I think that the next game will not only be made faster, but I will also make it a shorter scoped project to make sure I actually finish it. All in all, thank you all for watching, and if you're interested in game development, feel free to stick around with the channel. Until the next video. Bye bye.